This conference will now be recorded.
Oh, all right. Welcome to the October meeting of the Arlington Senior Democrats. And we're less than 30 days away from Election Day, and a lot of the people in this room I know are already doing things. I know we have people doing early poll reading. We're mailing out absentee ballot letters to the people that get them from the county. We send a letter right away to tell them how to vote. There's a lot of activities going on. We're looking for even more volunteers. All the precinct captains are soliciting people to greet on election day. So there's plenty of opportunities to get involved. And just to keep you in that spirit, we have a real cheerleader here for you today. J.D. Spain has had a very distinguished military career. He's been a very active, civically engaged Arlingtonian. He was president of the Arlington NAACP. He's been really involved in his community in many ways, and he's here to tell us A, about himself, but B, why we should all get excited about November. And uh, and he'll be clever enough to look right here in the camera, and I will give you J.D. Spain without any further introduction. Thank you.
All right. When we fight, okay, when we fight, that's right. I'm gonna have to be a little down a little bit. I've been doing some canvassing here in Northern Virginia, and I start off like, when we fight, we win. Why? Because of what Bob just alluded to. We're at a point where I think this is one of the most consequential. We say this all the time, right? But one of the most consequential elections in my 52 years of being on this earth. Because what we are up against is a system, a person, a group who really want to take us back to a time, in my opinion, before I was even born. A time when women did not have many rights, people of color were always discriminated against. You didn't look like a certain group of folks. They put dogs on you. Even back then, they told you to go back home. Policies and issues that were put in place was not for everyone. And I tell folks all the time, at this point, it's about making a very pragmatic decision. It's good versus evil. Good versus evil. We have had a little taste of what the other president, that President Trump, gave us during his 4 years. And I can't recall a time where I felt, as a man, a black man, a person of color, so nervous and afraid for others, right? And I've known civil rights. I've been around this for a long time. So when Bob talks about what am I here to do and to motivate you and get you, I think this group of folks right here, the senior Dems of Arlington, are ready to turn out, show out, write postcards like many of you have already done, make phone calls to ensure that Kamala Harris and Governor Tim Walz are elected as the next president and vice president of the United States, respectively. But make no mistake about it, this election will not be handed to us. Right? We've had Democrats this past weekend up in Pennsylvania with Beyond Arling knocking doors. We have Democrats down in North Carolina, Georgia, and other places, Florida. While we're at Florida, let's just take a moment and think about what's happening in Florida. Hurricane Milton is from what we're being told and what we're seeing is one of the most powerful hurricanes in decades. And it is going to be, perhaps, if it stays on this current path, devastating to our friends and our families down in that region. So if you know people down in Florida, please reach out to them to check on them because, I used to say this in the Marine Corps, we prepare for war in the time of peace. It does not look like this hurricane is it's intensifying and it's going to be devastating. So we need to keep those folks in our prayers and our thoughts because they're going to need our help. But to the elections, yeah, Florida is going to be a space where we're going to have to work hard as well. But when I was here a few months ago, I talked about my platform. And I also want to give a special shout out and recognize one of my friends and a person who ran alongside me in the Democratic primary. Either one of us would have been great for this position. That no one other than Tinley Peterson, who's with us today. Tinley has given a lot of her time to this community. She's a mother of school-aged children. She's an advocate just like I am. She's a pro-housing individual. She's sat on many commissions. So I really appreciate her being in the primary alongside myself and many others because guess what? Tinley, you made me better. And I thank you very much for that. And you're going to speak a little bit later because you couldn't stop and you're up doing something else here. But we're one big happy Democratic family, and it's all hands on deck for this election, folks. I just talked about this past weekend. I hosted 3 Harris Waltz canvas launches from my residence on Saturday. 3, 9 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 3 o'clock. And that was the second time I did that, and people showed up. The motivation's there, right? And as your Democratic nominee for the county board, what I talked about in the primary, you can count on this when I hopefully get in office with your help. When we talk about public education and the collaborative efforts that need to be made and continue between the county board and the school board to make sure we put our children and our families first, you can count on me as a father and as a person who's had children, who's gone through APS, that we're going to be there. We're going to have our teachers back. We're going to have our families and our students back, and make sure in this revenue sharing agreement that we have, that we're giving the school board the necessary funds to be successful. And I don't think most folks will say no to that, but we need to make sure. The reason I came to Arlington was because of the schools in Belgium. And that's why a lot of folks still come to school. We have a great school system, and we're going to make sure we keep it that way. When we talk about public health and public safety, which was another area of mine, youth mental health, you heard me talk about mental health for years. I also participated in the NAMI Northern Virginia Mental Health Awareness Walk this past weekend in Beaumont Park. There was over 300 people there. And let me tell you, folks, 1 in 5 American people suffer from a mental health illness. It is serious. And we see, when I talk about public health, the county embarked last year on finding some funding for some programs to help our youth in the tune of over $1 million. So I want to make sure we stay true to what we promised, but there's a lot of work to be done in this space and working with Department of Health and Human Services and our stakeholders around Arlington. So when I'm on the county board, I'm very passionate about that area, right? As a person who's seen mental health illness firsthand and seen people suffer from it, we're in Arlington, we're a family, we need to take care of each other. We're one Arlington. I'm going to make sure that we're giving everyone the tools to be successful in that area. I'm going to talk about 2 more things, and then I know Bob probably wants me to sit down.
We'd like to take questions.
I will take some questions. We're still, my friends, suffering from the lack, in my opinion, of creative innovation. And what I'm talking about in the economic security realm is we are still at a point in our commercial vacancy rate where we're not seeing it go down. Right? So it's still hovering around 20-some-odd%. And that too is concerning, right? When we have a loss of businesses here in Arlington and we don't substitute that with a different type of business coming in, what that means is that we're losing revenue, right? And when you lose revenue, which goes to programming, and if we don't get the money in, then the county comes back to you and says, do you want your programs or do you want your taxes? If you want the same programs, you want your taxes to go up. We have to do a better job in working with Arlington Economic Development and working with the General Assembly to promote and bring in new types of businesses here to Arlington. This is because we've done it a certain way a long time ago, doesn't really work. I want to talk about biotech, biopharmaceuticals, bringing those type of companies in here because we need, Taka Stranchonis used to say shots in arms in COVID. I say we need butts in seats. We need butts in seats because all of these buildings, many of which have already been vacated, and they all can be converted to affordable housing units, and all of them can be pickleball courts. They need to be utilized. Right? And how we get businesses in here is going to be critically important in working with the bids working with our Arlington Economic Development and regional partners, and ultimately the state General Assembly. Maybe we can get some different levels of incentive to incentivize bringing businesses here. We cannot continue to rely. I cannot say we've done this holistically, but Amazon can't just be the best thing going in. Okay, I'm not going to allow, and I work with Amazon, but they're not going to monopolize the market here in Arlington, be the only thing we go to when it comes to business. We need more businesses here. We need to, revitalize Columbia Pike. We have Lanix and Boulevard coming up on the horizon, a large build out in several years. So there's a lot of work to do there. And lastly, make no mistake about it, the environment. I was proud to be endorsed by the Sierra Club. And as we see these unpredictable weather patterns, rest assured that, with the new climate director of climate policy that's in staff, I'm going to work closely beside her. I haven't met her yet, to make sure that we stay at the tip of the spear, whether that's the electrification of many of our buses, ensuring that we have appropriate tree canopy around Arlington, that tree canopy equity fund has the right size money in it for years to come, because we still have heat islands in Arlington. We still have disproportionate areas within Arlington based on where your tree canopy is at, which your life expectancy is a little shorter. So we need to make sure we address those issues, make sure whether it's flood resiliency, stormwater, there's a lot of issues under the environmental realm that needs to be addressed, and I'm up for that. So with that being said, I'm just happy to be here. Again, a lot of talking. I'm an action-oriented person. When you find, I think you're going to see come next year a different type of leader, right? At least I'm one of 5. And I know Gail has seen me at work for many years. If you have not seen me in action, I'm a strategic thinker. I'm a lifelong Democrat. I love my Democratic Party. But I tell you what, I'm not a status quo person. Sometimes change is difficult, but in a place like Arlington that has the second smartest county in America, I'm going to challenge us to be different each and every day. From our staff, to our colleagues on the county boards, to our nonprofits that we work with, I'm going to challenge them to be better, because we want to be better. And so with that, let's continue to stay motivated. Let's get out and elect not just Kamala and Tim Walz, but Tim Kaine, get him reelected. Let's get Don Beyer reelected. And let's get our 2 board candidates, Kathleen Clark and Delari Kathleen Halley, and on the count on the school board. Thank you. I'm here for questions. I really love the
Well, I'll take the privilege of the first question.
anything left to be uncivilized. I mean,
Yeah. Yes. But anyway, but I'm trying to do it here so that the people at home, if there are any of the recording, will hear me.
Yeah.
So the problem is that a lot of investment is needed to adopt sort of a Green New Deal of more renewable energy and so on. Not only in the schools and the county buildings, but also in the condos and the apartment buildings and the office buildings and so on. What are you prepared to do to encourage adoption of greater renewable energy?
So I think Arlington County has already taken some really good steps in becoming more of a environmental, eco-friendly community. But when it comes to renewables and putting in good programs like that, it's called lead by example. I think, again, this is going to be a whole of government, a whole of community approach that we're going to have to bring to you. And honestly, how we incentivize that, if reconversion of some of these buildings into more environmentally friendly, suitable buildings is going to take some time. We know we have a shortage of, for example, electrical charging stations around Arlington. We need more of them. I've knocked on plenty of doors in some neighborhoods, but we're getting there. If you look out, you'll see in some of the community centers, we're seeing more and more electric charging stations coming on board. But Bob, I think it's going to take a little bit of time for us to come to a whole of green economy here. It's going to take all. It's not just going to take J.D. Spade and the county board setting an initiative. We're going to have to adapt and change our way of thinking. I was speaking with Tilly Peterson, how she came here today. She rode a bike. How many of us in here rode a bike to Buckboy Ports today? Raise your hand. We gotta do. I'm one of them. We have to do better than that. So if we're really going to become an environmentally friendly community, we're going to have to set the example for others to emulate, and that comes with, how we build out. We have the new career center coming on board, Bob. And guess what? That's not. It's not an environmentally friendly building. To be quite honest with you. And that's a problem. We should have did better when we approved that. So if we're going to take on these large scale projects, we've got to make sure up front that we do environmental impact studies, economic studies before we say yes. Because if we're not willing to do that, then all is stuff for now.
And honestly, I don't.
So we have to really put our money on this. And I'm looking forward to working with this new deputy county manager for climate policy to see what ideas she may have here in our community. Because it's going to take all of us.
Well, Donald Trump is responsible for the great
nonprofits involved, churches, solar, geothermal, and things like that. More trees. This is very complex, but
immediately after that debate, tweeted in all that he would veto a national abortion ban if it came across his desk, because he wants the states to be able to sign. He wants this to be a states' right.
Check this door.
He did say.
Hey, everybody. That's a great question, because I get that question. The question was, what is the county board going to do with this missing milk?
Percentage-wise, that means very little. The CDC says that 95%.
I know one thing. I'm a policy.
The Republican Party today,
for a number of
the issue of abortion has become what the Democrats was 30 years ago.
But I'm not sure where that county is going to go. They're waiting right now, from what I'm being told, on a written opinion to come out from the judge. The written opinion should come out on October 25th. And, if I can read the tea leaves, again, I'm not a member of the board. I think the county's going to be celebrated. Does our community want to go back through this area again, all back and forth? Perhaps not. But I tell you, change, and some of the issues that the judge brought up, I think we as a community can mitigate, fix, and move forward. The fact of the matter is that we have a shortage of housing. We have a shortage of housing in the region. Shortage of housing nationwide. Thus, we're in this nice area.
Refuses to articulate even
the whole president of the United States is already
at any point during her pregnancy,
because we have
is to eliminate
perhaps
you now said that she
it's a battle.
eliminate Senate filibuster.
In the long term. But as I put the point of Mr. Little,
there's a lot for any state to be able to enact any restriction on abortion whatsoever. They're serious about it. The Democratic Party pulled up mobile abortion clinics like taco shops outside of the Democratic National Convention, mockingly celebrating murdering infants with banners and hashtags like "Shout Your Abortion." As I watched that on TV, there was one Bible verse that tattooed itself on my soul. Proverbs 8:36 says, "All who hate me love death." So ask yourself the question: which candidate will best limit the taking of abortion? The sermon just ends, so I'm just going to end it. Here we go. Let me say two things. One, there are some, again, well-meaning, naive Christians that they hear all that and they're like, yeah, Josh, but even if this politician gets elected, they won't save America. Or they'll say, yeah, Josh, but politics can't save anybody. My response to that is, from what?
And that is a major discouragement.
Politics can't save anybody from hell. In fact, it's so important. Politics can't save anybody from hell. There could be people in hell who are very passionate about their Judeo-Christian.
And I did it, but because
anybody from the Christians that are obligated to either pull heaven up, pull heaven down into our lives, or pull hell up into our lives. Politics can't save anybody from hell, but it can save us from pulling hell up into our state nation.
Reservation, we need to revisit the
What is hell?
requirements for new.
Right.
You're a guest. What did I walk into? Bro, this is insane. You're like, y'all talk about one more, I'm one less. You know, whatever it is. What is hell? You need to understand this, because without saving faith in Jesus, you will finish there. What is hell? Hell is a place of darkness, of lawlessness, of bitterness, unforgiveness, hatred. It's a place of chaos.
Those are two great points, and ones that I'll look into.
Urban centers in our nation, cities ruled by godless leaders.
Missing middle, build out houses.
Burning buildings, looters, shoplifting in broad daylight, and police aren't even allowed to do anything about it.
The character behind
markets and children, bleeding, but rampant lawlessness.
and large homes have been built, and trees have been taken out, and those trees were replaced. Right? So this thought of
given more authority to lead an entire nation.
And trees, we can do that. And I think when it comes to tree canopy, we also look at
but there are no
we have
people
we can't really identify right now the place of the fall new trees. If we put out the program, that's what the problem. We have to survey for a mile, know where we place trees. What I'm being told, a lot of people on the streets early on, we die, and we don't have a good ground.
Bible believing Christians did not vote. That election was decided by a strategically placed 42,000 votes. So listen, I just want to say this. If there are 24,000 in-person attenders at the point this weekend,
Just for growing chapter, a lot of areas there was a little more. There's another question right here.
Number two, this is the most important part of the sermon. You come back any other week, is what you're going to hear constantly.
Person actually got on. Great news. Again,
So why were people taking buses? I think the transportation, there's a study on the rate that's occurring right now. It's in the community. Everyone was looking at again on transportation problems. But they asked the question, it's, I think why people view on bus is false sense of like reliability. Like I need to get from point A to point B, and I need to do it like this, right? And you're using that. But then there's also this aspect of a bus stop being takes a while, 6 months from your home. So we need to do a better job than bring managing our transportation, right? Although within this corridor, the routes when they're going high occupancy, we're trying our best, but it's hard sometimes to get some folks to do what you did say, jump on the bus. And I know that y'all are fine. We've actually brought and let them utilize it. Some of us want to be about how the school bus and utilize that's a whole nother. But be able to do it. Just want a bus that is now people community. But it's going to take some time. That was really my part.
If you didn't tell me what time I
Yeah.
was gonna be on 2 hours, 3 hours.
Yeah, I mean, it's not only the buses that aren't being utilized to get the candidates, but metro. And so metro has
Going to the Pentagon Mall.
years had an effective.
Yeah, I got to figure it out. I got to put on my phone.
Which get cost me $6 each trip.
Oh, I thought you were sure. Always say you're going to.
Even though it's in the terms.
But I should mention that we do get the metro bond referenda on the ballot. And in turn, in fact, ask for you to pay with it. So we're
Well, maybe after bus falls for the luncheon.
Big Jerry bad.
But I think it's beautiful. So well.
House of the county, school.
Yeah, Martin, that's a really good question. I think it's pretty important that for our central personnel, and we have some levels of programming here for workforce, so apply and get just have that program is not as robust as it needs to be. But these are the benefits of it, right? A person who, in my opinion, works and lives in the neighborhood and sees folks in grocery are more inclined to really feel a part of the community, right? And what we have going on right now, and I think a lot of us know, whether it's our sheriff department, our teachers, our first responders, the fire department, many of them don't even live in, right? So they don't feel a sense of like that invested in our community. So I think there's these tangible and intangible aspects of just life and work that are critically important to the success of the community. I grew up seeing my local county police officer in my church, my teacher at the grocery store, and we have lost that in Arlington. And whatever we can do, and I'm talking about this in the primary, whatever I can do to help aid assist, teachers, county employees, all of them, incentivize them coming, and even a new build out, carving out areas where essential personnel can do build out at a certain rate. I'm for it because I want people to live and work in the same location. Now, granted, some folks may want to go to Westchester, Winchester, because they're going to have a town of farmers. That's okay. But I spoke to 5 firefighters about 2 months ago. 5, they were all together. And I asked, y'all live in Arlington? 0. I went to the sheriff department and sat down with Jose Cuero and I asked him, how many people, out of 260 people we have on staff, how many live in Arlington? 21. And we're talking about community, and you didn't even go to the police department. So you can't have community police if your police officers don't live in your community. Okay? And so we really have to work hard as a county, we have to work hard in new developments that come, especially with new residents. We already have a certain percentage of housing for students, but we also areas for teachers and folks like that, and paying living wages, but the wages commensurate to live in this area. And it has to be competitive. We're losing folks because over in Loudoun, over in Alexandria, they're paying 10% more. They didn't repair it, they'll take off. We are things. And then we need to work. But if we want to keep the best schools, we want to keep the best people. It's going to cost us a little bit. And I think, yes, ma'am.
one last question for JD. Who has the last question for JD? No?
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Gail's already voted, but she still has all kinds of questions. Let's tell it.
JD, I guess my question for you is what can we all do as a community to help the Democratic win in November?
Wow. Thank you for the question. And I'm amongst individuals like Bob who has been doing this for decades. So he's listened attentively to what I'm about to say. Look, It's never. I tell you what, it's never too late. Many vendors to write a postcard. To come to our Arlington County Dems meeting tomorrow. Tell the team, hey, I want to do something over the next couple of days, the next couple of weeks. And I realize that many folks may not want to get out and outdoors, but you can get in our phone bank. You can get it. Yeah, early voting polling is great, but I also keep in mind there's many people that may want to stand up. Many people don't want to stand up for 2 hours. I was out there last week with a young lady. It was drenching rain. I probably remember it was raining, and took a picture together with her. And she had that blue ballot, that sample ballot. She had her hood on, and I said, I just gotta give you a hug. What you're doing for Democrats goes on like to answer your question. I think if you want to get involved, there's many ways to get involved, especially with the party. Our party does a good job in contrast to many other places I've been at. To really say being open for everybody. We say we are a big tent party. You want to write postcards, you want to do early voting, you want to poll green, we can do it for you. But I'll tell you why I said about postcards. In my primary campaign, I did some mailers, right? Mailers look good, but we live in Arlington. Everybody expects a mailer. They're like, okay, this looks cute. But the people know, mailers cost a lot of money. It's been about mail. What you know, fees, personalized post. No, I'm serious. It's written the right way. We had people who receive postcards or text us. Someone put on because it gives them a sense of like, tell them why in 2 to 3 sentences why they need to vote. Tell them your experience in 2 to 3 sentences. I've been here for 20 years. This is what I've never go on and vote. And we have a roster. We can let you do that. Make it phone. But that's how I think we can get involved. But also, don't give up on our party. Now, you will. We're going to need you. As a senior dancer, we're going to need your wisdom. We're going to need your guidance. I'm going to need your guidance because, like I said, I'm going to be too. My steps get a little shorter. I'm not as fast as I used to be, but many of you that go before me, it helped me in this party be successful. Whenever you want to reach out, you have advice from me, I'm all here. Please call me and reach out to me. Okay?
All right, let's give JD.
And now I can eat some catfish.
Now you can't cheer. But the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to hear from our school bond campaign. And we've already heard a little bit from Tenley, but we also have Monique Blake here. And I'm going to try to figure out how to share the screen. There we go. And the folks at home will be seeing this too, although I know one person's on the telephone. And remember, this is the camera, so try to look into the camera and also you can even address JT, although he was going to be sitting there eating his food. Coming in everybody.
Okay,
And I'm
and
going
they
to
see me.
dismiss this little thing on the corner here. Let's get rid of that. There you go. Just close this thing. And some off to the right.
Well, thank you all so much for welcoming us today. I'm Tenley Peterson. This is my friend Mo Bryant. We are the co-chairs of the APS bond for 2024. And so historically, as I'm sure you all know, the community nominates 2 people to chair the bond committee. Mo and I have been involved with Arlington Public Schools for a while now. I'm an APS mother of 3 kids. I'm also a substitute teacher at the schools. Mo is a volunteer, a longtime parent as well. And so we were selected to to kind of champion the bond, go around the community, tell people about it, answer questions, and ultimately, help get it passed. I've been going around, a lot of people have been asking, is this community really necessary? We all know the bond is going to pass. And fortunately, we live in such a wonderful community that the answer is yes, it usually does pass. There are lots of communities around the country where schools cannot get bonds. And Arlington, fortunately, has been fulfilling their longtime responsibility to support the schools. And so for that, we're very grateful, but we also don't want to take it for granted. We also want to work hard. We want to make sure that we're respecting our teachers and our students and our parents, and make sure we're definitely getting out there and just letting people know about like what this money is for, so that they can feel proud of the investments that we're making in our schools. And the Democratic sample ballot does say, vote yes, Arlington Public Schools bond. The other sample ballot that you might see that is in the color red says do not support this bond. And so while we don't get many Republicans in Arlington out to vote, still just want to make sure that all of the Democrats are supporting the cause to invest in our schools. So I can share, Mo can share a little bit about why she got involved in supporting this bond.
Hello. So before I say why I got involved, to answer one of these questions that she asked, and as JD so eloquently said, what can we do? How can we support the Democratic Party and the vote? Something that I did this weekend is visit my eldest son in college, and every person that I encountered that is in this age bracket, I asked them, were they registered? Did they have a plan? Did they have their absentee ballot because they're college students? Was their mom, their dad, their grandparents, their aunties, their uncles, somebody picking them up to either transport them back to vote, or were they doing a mail-in ballot? How were they going to be voting? Making sure that we engage some of our younger voters is really, really important to me, because we know that eventually we need to be able to pass the baton and prepare them to lead the party. How I got involved, it's all of our responsibility, right? So as Cindy said, I'm an APS mom. My eldest is a senior in college. My little is a fifth grader, and I always feel that we can do more. A few years ago, my soul work, which is my volunteer work, became my full-time work. And so in order to get back to my community, I needed to do other volunteer work. And so this means a lot to me, because when we think about our youngest community members, when we think about our profit values, when we think about our AAA bond rating, these are the ways that we fund our schools. These are the ways that we are able to fully embrace our students, our staff, our teachers, our paraprofessionals. So please vote yes for the bond, and I'll let you go.
So, and I got involved, one of the school board members asked me recently, tell me, will you kind of get on supporting the bond? And I said, well, can you tell me about, let's talk about what's in the bond. And she talked about the critical infrastructure improvements, which, as somebody who was on the budget commission for many years, we kept talking to the county about invest in what we have. We have to keep investing in our infrastructure, so that we can take care of what we've already paid for, and make sure that we don't have deferred maintenance costs that just add up and add up and add up. So that was one of the things that I liked about it. On the planning commission, we talk a lot about the importance of adaptive reuse. It's really good for the environment to take a building that already exists and adapt it, rather than knocking it down and building something brand new. And so this bond does that. It's going to take the Legacy Career Center building and repurpose it for some additional educational use. So I like that aspect. And I also co-chair the Public Facilities Review Committee when we talk about the Career Center building and the plans for that entire campus, and talking to the neighbors, talking to the people who were involved in the process. And during that conversation, we were saying, okay, well, we're going to approve the Career Center, and then we're going to move the Montessori program into this building. And they said, well, the Montessori move thing isn't in the plans. They said, well, that's what we're going to do. Don't worry about it. And he said, no, we want to see it in writing, or we don't believe that it's going to happen. And so now, fast forward a year and a half, we actually have it in writing. So we're kind of following through with that neighborhood commitment we were making a couple of years ago when we were talking about the Career Center development. So we just wanted to go over really quickly. Waffle? Yeah. Thank you very much. We just wanted to go over the capital improvement plan. So every 2 years, the community gets together, has a big community conversation, usually around May and June, talk about, what should our long-term investments be? What do we want to pay to, possibly new buildings, a lot of updates to existing buildings, big infrastructure projects, big investments that we kind of want to pay for over a long period of time. And so recently our elected Democratic leaders approved the CIP. And so then this bond helps to fund for some of the elements of the CIP. So our current CIP that goes 2025 to 2034 here we go. This is the big list of things. So it does security updates, security vestibules to keep our kids in school safe, which I think we can all appreciate that as a substitute teacher. I had to do some of the lockdown drills last month, and it makes me feel safer to have these security updates being made. Renovations to kitchens, which is part of the current bond, and it's also something that's been in past bonds, to make sure that we're able to produce fresh, healthy food on site so the kids can be eating the best food that we can have available to them. Updating some software systems, updating athletic fields at different schools. The current bond does include some updates to the Kenmore field. This is really important. As a soccer mom, I know how frequently kids' soccer practices and soccer games are canceled because of rain. If it rains, the fields that are natural are rendered worthless for several days, and if the kids do play on them, they destroy the field. So the synthetic fields allow us the ability to keep using those fields even when it's poor weather, keep the kids active, keep them engaged, keep them outside. And the nice thing about the fields that we're talking about for this bond is that they're going to be, instead of those rubber that people have concerns about, the little tiny rubber beads, they're going to use coconut husks. So that's a nice kind of extra benefit that we have now. Completing the heights with making the campus universally accessible is in our CIP, finishing the Grace Hopper Center with the new Career Center building, moving MPSA. Also, when we move the new Career Center building when we move the MPSA to the Legacy Career Center building, we'll be able to tear down the old building, which is falling apart, and we'll be able to use that as green space, which the community is really excited about. The kids will be able to have really nice outdoor space during school hours, and on the evenings and weekends, the community will be able to use that space. It also funds some critical notification systems at 11 schools, which again, like safety perspective, is really important to keeping our children and teachers and staff safe. A feasibility study. So there's been a lot of conversation about how we need to keep investing, like I was mentioning earlier, in these critical infrastructure updates, keep our schools that we have online, keep them really well functioning, in particular when it impacts like the actual learning experience of the kids. If a roof is leaking, that distracts the kids, and it's embarrassing for such a world-class community like ours. And so we've got a feasibility study looking at 5 other schools that are going to need help next. And then looking at the trade center. So just looking at specifically what is in this bond, we mentioned the major infrastructure projects. We've got roof replacements at Dorothy Ham, Escuela Key, and Williamsburg. HVAC replacements at Hoffman Boston, Jamestown, and Oak Ridge. And we're doing the Kenmore Field conversion project, which I mentioned earlier. Since that field will be used by both kind of county parks and rec and the schools, we're splitting the costs between the county and the schools. The adaptive reuse of the Legacy Career Center building for Montessori Public School of Arlington. I've been talking about that. So looking at the kind of really old building that it's in currently, moving it across the parking lot to the Legacy Career Center building, updating that to make sure it's appropriate for more use, updating it to current standards. And then the kitchen renovations that's going to be able to give us fresh, healthy food to our children. So the total bond is about $84 million. Yeah, and we have bond flyers that we are passing around. So you can take a look at that. We'll be passing this out at different community events, but please do let your friends know about it. Overall, the kind of big reasons that we're asking you to support the bond, other than just, a community responsibility to support our kids and our teachers and our families. But the schools strengthen our neighborhoods. They attract new families, new business. We have meetings talking about our commercial vacancy rate. If we can fill that space, that increases our tax revenues. And so having good schools attracts businesses to the region. We're preserving our property values, which is important. And it protects our AAA bond rating, which gets us the best interest rates across the county. And that's something that we have long had in Arlington. And for us to be able to make the most effective use of our tax dollars, we want to protect that AAA bond rating. So how to support the school bond, please vote early. You can vote by mail or go in person at your polling place on November 5th. And please tell your friends, tell your family about supporting the bond and why it's important. Do you have anything else to add?
I think she summed it up beautiful.
Okay, yeah, so we're happy to answer questions if you have any.
Yeah, I'll jump in first. These two distinguished guests are too proud to actually grovel for money, but I the co-chair, the co-chairs, we also have a financial component, every like that to be the treasurer. So we actually have to fundraise, pay for the yard signs that you all see. If any of you are so moved to donate, you'll come see me after the program is over. Or get two people stay. That's the thing, but we do have to raise some money. It's not funded out of the joint campaign or anything like that. It's technically a nonpartisan separate. But thank you both for giving such great presentations. I encourage people to ask probably questions. Yes, Jim.
Then what is the next step for that? For when is it available? Purchase, but they're tax free and getting them buy it. So what happens when I was saying like
Yeah, so one of the nice things about this bond right now, we're kind of approving a credit. And so the bond is written such that it is flexible to be used for the critical needs of Arlington Public Schools. And so we've got our CIP document, which guides how we're going to spend that money. But, the pandemic was a completely unexpected event. And so the bond does give the flexibility for future leaders to say, you know what, we think we have some new needs, let's add that in. But so kind of as the project moves forward, our elected leaders, the school board will vote on specific projects. And then when they get approved by the school board, then they can start pulling down some of the money from the approved bonds.
So, but the actual bond is an issue until our bond council and our underwriters feel it's actually right the best date for each market. So if, for example, interest rates are heading down, they are right now. We'll put it off for a couple of months. If they see interest rates heading way up, they'll step in the gas and get it done a little.
Correct. And it's that the interest doesn't start incurring unless they draw down from the bond. And they don't need to draw down until they have that need and approval to fund infrastructure or whatever projects that they feel are most pressing.
It's over to
Yes, so
the bonds.
and if you, we've got the CIP that's available online. It includes this wonderful spreadsheet, but it tells you when we are expecting to spend money and then they color coded by the bond, because the bond, is going to be spent over some time and pay back over time. So it'll tell you, the 2024 bond referendum, what we're going to spend some of the money in FY 2025, some of the money in FY 2026, some in 2027, and some in yeah. And so then you'll be able to see, so like the kitchen renovations, that's here. Those are for FY 2025. So those will be in, as well as the major infrastructure projects, the roofs and the Kenworth. And so a lot of this will be
An HVAC.
Yes, an HVAC. Yes, thank you. Grace Hopper Center.
I don't know what that is.
Okay, so the Heights isn't part of this bond, but it is part of the 10-year CIP. And so that's just making some updates so that the school is universally accessible. And the Grace Hopper Center is the Career Center building over on Walter Reed, right near Columbia Pike. There's there were 3 school buildings there. There was the Montessori program, the community high school was there, and then the career centers, all 3 schools.
Yes, correct.
Right, exactly. So that's going to be the new career center. building.
It's named Grace Hopper.
Yes.
It's named Grace Hopper. That's what that's.
So they're calling it the Grace Hopper campus, which will be the ultimately it will be the career center building and the MPS building, and then some nice green space for the community, fields, and things like that.
No, it will go to the Legacy Career Center.
Yeah.
We'll go to
To the previous Career Center Legacy with the renovations. That's what's in the bond.
So there were 3 buildings on the property. The community high school is moving off and going to a different part of Arlington. They knocked down that building and they're rebuilding a brand new building. Then they're going to move the career center kids into the new building. And they want to update the old career center building, move the Montessori kids into that, and then knock down the super old decrepit building, Henry building, and then just make that a nice field space for the kids to play.
And then if you think, Gail, of like long-term planning, talking about, I don't even know, maybe more than 10 years, the pedagogy for Montessori is that they would be in the class in that one school up until 8th grade. So hopefully if that transpires later down the road, it would alleviate some of the seats at Gunston, which currently house the immersion, the Montessori, and the traditional in one school.
So they already have Montessori from pre-K3 until 8th grade. It's just that the middle school component is currently at Gunston.
With
So
immersion
they're
and
gonna
traditional.
Try to put all of the kids together, which makes running Gunston, the traditional aspects of the school, a bit smoother, and then also gets all the kids in the one school so that because of the way Montessori has a little bit different certification program, so there are some benefits about how teachers are getting certified, keep them all on the same campus. Yeah, so both of our kids are actually at MPSA, and I'm a teacher at MPSA as a substitute, so I'm not there all.
But I did point out, just for perspective, that when we had opposition to school bonds in past years, and a lot of it had nothing to do with the capital improvements that it represents on school. For example, years ago, there were a number of families who were very upset at the school bond issue, where they brought in areas to the green school. So they actually raised money and printed up something saying, if they read this like school, it was because they were so
During the
stuff. Yeah. So and it's also been an observation for like 30 years. Republicans generally have randomly picked one bond issue to vote. 1 year it's the parks, the year it's the school bond. And you can't predict what it'll be, so you have to sort of arm up and have a good campaign just in case you're the target of whatever the random sort of is.
Bond, although I heard it mentioned with this year's bill bonds often refinance other bonds that are coming due also. Is there any of that?
I don't think there's any of that.
Not that
I
we
mean,
can.
I'm thinking about often.
I have not seen.
I mean, five people do it.
Yeah, and we have sinking funds and all of that. So the fact is, if the bond is sold, it would be sold in the region once for 2 or 6 years. So if you want to refinance, you know, I was going to do any. I mean, and here's during our decade of pre-low interest rates, investing in the future. And that's what was a better position financially than that's doing basically.
Because they're
Yes,
first meetings.
it's anecdotal information from poll readers. I'm it's readers who didn't have their own. Yeah, I think we reader, our poll reader, they can't tell them about that. She's trying to, be really tough. It may have just been one person. I'm not sure. Yeah,
I think the answer to that is we are one of the few municipalities in America that has the triple A line.
Yeah.
So all people are very willing to use it very bad rates. And our annual long-term plans are very carefully calibrated so the amount of borrowing never would cause us to lose that money. So we're really pretty lucky.
how was the situation for well, and I think that just speaks to how well you all, as Democrats, have been to select good leaders who have protected our finances in the community and have earned us that triple B bond rating. So it's been responsible.
I was just wondering, would JD and others who, contribute, what is?
So you asked me what you're getting at. I mean, of course, I can't speak for all 5 members that are on there right now. But I did take a good, all the issues that are laid out, within these bond referendums. And I also look at it something, someone said it earlier, maybe it was telling, it's almost like, cap in your credit. You can go to but it's good to know. And I think there's intersectionality between all these different what we get going forward, what we hope to see between this collaborative effort, because I say it again, you can't continue to work in bubbles like the accounting board. A lot of it's because it's collaborative, it's big, it's done. With it, we can always
become a New York staple. Everybody loves them. So tell us about this milestone of being severe.
We founded the company in 2008 after I was fired from my job as an assistant media planner because I wasn't good at it. But I love making tie-dye cupcakes. I love language. And it's been 16 years of consistent hard work and dedication. And now we get the whole company baked by Martha. It's a perfect gift and dessert if you're entertaining or you need something special. Go to bakedbymelissa.com.
I was telling you, I think I was one of the first fans around 2009.
Yes.
In Soho. So you get a lot of more than 5 million followers on TikTok that come to you for advice or recipes as well. Did you expect to blow up in that area?
I did not expect to blow up on social media. I actually set out to learn how to use TikTok so I can get my team
Realizable feedback on because the thing about the school responsibility that
I love social media.
I
I
know
think it's a
sometimes
very
that
inspiring
we
place.
really need to think about what we can already use for existing structures, realizing that they do like we can't
And we're just
start to build fresh and
to learn how to use social media to
I'll also say, we've been talking to a lot of leaders who are people on their primaries, and a lot of them have said, ultimately we want to fund our schools, we have to fund our schools, and they might not like every aspect of the
Well, you can
bond.
do
They
it
know
first and
that
foremost,
creating
and I think it's about taking small
a
steps
capital
forward
improvement
every
plan
single day,
is
engaging
a
people who
process that
have
involves a
skill
lot of
sets and
different
experience
stakeholders.
that
And
you
so
and I have.
the
We found that big
enemy
farmers are fine with
might
us.
not like
So
this
we
aspect
haven't
of the
just
bond, but we
done
do
the
really
work
like
with
investing in the
people
roofs,
who
investing
don't
in
just
the
do
HVAC, getting them
including my big.
more time play. And so I think almost everyone that we've talked to is like, yes, if I don't necessarily like the CIP, every single thing, like I want the bond. We need the bond.
Looking at the kitchen bond issue, are you now cooking from scratch in every element?
I don't know if they're cooking from scratch, but I know they're providing, so there's two parts. One for morning purchase meals, like one of the schools specifically Drew. One of my friends was here early, she's the PCA president this year, and we were chatting about things. They currently have one entrance. I mean, my dad grew up, there's one entrance that fits in the outfit and updating the whole field. But there's one entrance to go in and out based on student body. They need to have another point of entrance and another egress, be able to go out more to serve staff and students more efficiently and to provide more space for more nutrition. I don't want to misspeak and say that they're all providing from scratch, but that's their goal. On that provide picture that shows on the site. Yes. And on the site, in the apsba.us bond site, there is a new photo of updated kitchen. I think they did a side by side. I don't have it, but there's a side by side of what the new renovations look like. And it's, oh, there it is.
There's the photo of the new
And
renovation.
this is like the new renovation where it's more open. It gives I have a 10-year-old. There's a lot of times she does not choose. They don't really choose the horse, she chooses it. Doesn't choose it. So it's just like that. We want to choose something that's fresh, that looks appealing, that gives a variety of options for. Well, you have enough space
For helping get healthier foods in the schools and making that a priority. And now we just need to make sure that we are logistically set up to kind of carry out our mission.
Other questions?
Well, speaking of food, let me just say this, and we probably all know this. Matt DeFerranti spearheaded this years ago. We have a problem in is food insecurity. Right? There's a number of, and these are great programs that have for a lot of you that are coming to this school. You don't even want to know. For some of them, that's probably the only meal they're getting. Okay, they're receiving. So we're taking again this whole community, whole approach to make sure students are afforded opportunity to eat well. That we have the right space. I did that dream last night. That came up in the Civic Association meeting about expansion of the kitchen, which is a great move because right now, really, we haven't been to Drew Elementary. Drew is growing, so they need the space to accommodate. Tilly talked about earlier, this influx of students that we're seeing coming in. But I remember the days as I closed, when I told them I talked to them. I remember the days in elementary school going in, and I look forward to that breakfast, that hot breakfast, and I look forward to that lunch. And mom and dad worked that night. And sometimes I had to come home with a PHA sandwich for grandma. So those having the space, making sure we have nutritious meals, making sure our youth are getting fed, that's important. Looking through the eyes of the next generations, and knowing that what we're all doing are laying the foundations here, but building upon things, how we can be better in the next 5 to 10 years. And that's what it's all about.
So somebody early makes a big difference.
Equity in education and literacy, you can expect children to be able to read, learn to read and do well, if they're not breathing good air, clean systems, having a kitchen that has nutritious meals, having teachers that feel safe and secure that feel getting one in respect, you cannot talk about one without the other. And that's really
Great big. And the schools are available, from dawn to dusk in the county. And there are a lot of use of the athletic fields. There also there's the use of the platforms for other activities and so on. And so when you invest dollars in the school, it's really not only making it just for the school children, but for the entire community.
Well, and it's the intersectionality of like also having kids need to be outside and use the space. And when we convert the fields to turf, the coconut husk turf in particular, they can use that space more. They can get outside and run around, and they're going to convert to more field. On the rainy days when they're like, we can't use this field for 48 hours. I mean, when my kids go home after a rainy day and they're like, take them the energy out. So getting the fields to be able to be used more is part of this fun.
Is critical. These breakfast subsidized.
They were during COVID for sure. I don't know definitively. I don't. I think that. I think it is no child is denied. That is definite. But I don't think it's completely. Yeah, so I agree. I think it's.
So that's a great question, but so can I these meals for kids? Because I also want to talk about while school during the school year, and I know you talked about you brought up Tim Walls. We have a lot of kids during the summer when school is out for start. And something I'm going to be talking about next year, hopefully, is identifying these students. Who are they? Making sure they have access to good food during the summer. Not going down to the Lucky 7 or the 7-Eleven and getting a sugary drink with 70% of the recommended sugar intake for 1 day. If these kids end up having diabetes, 9 and 10 years old, then they're in the medical system. It's a cycle. And appreciate it.
No.
What's that?
I want gardens at school. But that's another day.
Waste clone, farmers, nothing like that. Yeah.
I could do field trips to cultivate the land for me.
No, you're good.
Re-election issues. On campaign.
Can you take a photo of us? Can you take a photo of us? Bob,
Yeah.
we get
Distribute the cookie.
okay, I'm not gonna let you take.
Please vote early vote if you and share with everyone. And we actually sent Bob an digital
And the cookies are coming here. So JD can filibuster with the camera.
And we can stand back here with. Yeah. He feels on. Trying to help out with works.
And again, thank you for having.
Thank you.
Here are the cookies. Thank you.